Thank you for joining us for this presentation of workforce strategies for the virtual office. So before we start, I'd like to just quickly review what our agenda will be for this presentation. The first thing we will cover will be the transition to the virtual office. Currently, with everything going on here in 2020 with COVID-19 and the coronavirus, everyone's been forced to work from home, and we just want to go through at a high level some of the things that you will need to consider and look at when you are transitioning your workforce to a distributed office or having people work remotely from home. After that, we will take a look at some of the tools available for communication and collaboration, and then we'll be reviewing and going over different remote access technologies at a high level, VPN and remote access, and actually some different cloud technologies. So we're going to go ahead and jump in and get started on this. Once you have people that are going to be working remotely and working from home offices, there's some things you're going to want to consider before you just jump right in and give them a laptop and just send them on their way to work from home. Some of the things you're going to want to consider is just don't assume that your staff knows exactly what to expect once they're working from home. There's some conversations that need to take place. Some basic things such as, what are their working hours going to be? Are they going to be working a typical 8-hour day from home? Do you have different time zones that have to be accommodated for telephone coverage? What about things like lunch breaks? Do you have to coordinate different people from home offices for phone coverage for lunch breaks if you don't have anyone at all in your office? Or maybe you're rotating staff into the office for phone coverage to cover those breaks as well. And also maybe that hours are not the main concern, but that's just that everyone is actually getting the work done. So maybe it's just really concerned about the results, that hours aren't really the issue. But it's important just that everyone is on the same page and that those expectations are set before everyone is working from their remote offices. Some other things to consider too regarding communication are response times. What are the expectations for response times of emails? Is that going to change when everyone is working remotely, or is it still going to be your typical kind of responses for emails and returning phone calls? Another item that often gets overlooked when people start working remotely are, what about time off requests? What's the process for that? How are they going to submit vacation or sick time or requests for that? Is there a shared calendar available? Is there a person, an HR manager that's going to be called, or is that going to be sent in by email? Again, just conversations that need to take place when everyone is going to be working remotely, and they're not all in the same office every day where those conversations might just naturally kind of happen. So some things to consider when people are working from home. Do they have all the tools that they need? So the first thing, what kind of internet access do they have? Do they have adequate internet access? Is it have decent speed? Maybe they live in a rural area where they don't have good internet access. Will they need a personal hotspot? What about phone calls? How are they going to be getting their phone calls? Will the calls be able to be transferred from your office to your remote staff? How will that process take place? So one thing to consider, and we'll talk more about this a little later, is maybe a VoIP phone system if that's not already in place. What about the devices that they're using? Do they have a laptop issued, or are they going to be using a personally owned device, personally owned computer, a personally owned laptop, or is it something that is going to be provided for them? If they are using personally allowed devices or personally owned devices, you should really stop and consider that practice, especially if they will be doing any kind of a VPN connection, and we'll be talking more about exactly what a VPN is, or if you already have a VPN in place, strongly discourage allowing anyone to use their personally owned devices on any kind of a VPN connection. And just also, what about the workspace in the office? Is there a proper desk and a chair? If you're going to be doing video calls, video conferencing, do they have a webcam or a headset available? And in order to make those calls, is there any kind of a private or at least a semi-private space available? Has the staff worked that out with their family members or roommates or whoever so that they know when they're on a phone call or a video meeting when that's taking place? And also, one thing that quite commonly comes up when people are working from home is complaints about internet connection being slow. Quite commonly, once someone is working remotely, they're working from their home office, especially now when everybody's home. Now you're competing for your internet bandwidth, spouses and kids who are streaming movies, playing games, and, you might be trying to get some work done and things are laggy and slow. And it's another conversation about, who gets priority with the internet connection when you're working remotely. So these are just all some general topics that, just need to be talked about. So once users are working remotely from their home office, one thing that's going to be critical is communication and how everyone stays in contact. So when it comes to managers or supervisors having regular meetings with the remote staff, one thing that's out of sight, out of mind really isn't going to work. Proper communication channels, managers and staff, and also among peers as well is going to be critical. One thing too that also kind of gets overlooked is the water cooler conversations. Employees don't get that social aspect of, coming in the morning, everyone saying hi, seeing how their previous day was or how their weekend was. When meetings do happen, that can be a good icebreaker to just have people or have your staff just kind of mention how everything's going, just to kind of stay in touch and kind of break the ice and get the flow of a meeting going again. And I've also run into suggestions of virtual coffee breaks or virtual lunches for that same reason, so that not only communicating for business and productivity, but also just so everyone can kind of stay in touch throughout the day and keep those relationships going. So again, you're going to be looking for tools for having your company-wide meetings. And then also on a much smaller level, it can be useful for peers working together to maybe just have smaller team meetings, whether that's a morning briefing call or kind of a morning to do, what are we going to accomplish today? Or it might be a wrap up at the end of the day and to kind of figure out what you've got to get done the next day. Another thing to consider too with those calls, with everyone being forced to remotely and work home right now, is actually the time of day or even just the time of hour that those are happening. So everybody is not trying to have video conferencing calls all at the same time of day. So maybe just staggering those by 10 or 15 minutes from when you normally would might help with that. So instead of everyone coming in and having an 8 a.m. video call, you'd be doing it 8:10 or 8:15 or 8:20, just so we're kind of staggering the usage of the internet in your particular area. So what kind of tools do we have available to us to do these things? There's really way too many to mention. I'm just going to touch on some of the big ones that are out there. The first one I'll mention is Zoom. Zoom is great for doing online meetings. And with everything going on right now, Zoom has removed the limitations from their free service. So that's been really great. Microsoft Teams, since most companies already have an Office 365 subscription, Microsoft Teams is available to them, which has video conferencing capability built into it. The same thing with Google Hangouts. If you're a G Suite user, they have increased the functionality to add the G Suite Enterprise features in there temporarily as well. So that's another thing that's really helpful. If you need to go beyond just basic video meetings, if you have a need for webinars, GoToMeeting is a great tool for that. And then, of course, Ring Central is also a free service as well, which offers online meeting plans as well. Their free service can have up to 100 participants in it. The free service was limited to a 40-minute meeting. I have not seen anything, though, definitively if they have eliminated that like Zoom has. I suspect they probably have, but I have not found that prior to this recording. VoIP, voice over IP telephone systems. If your plan is to have staff change their greeting and say that they should call their cell phone number, it might be time to reevaluate your telephone system. VoIP systems offer a lot of flexibility and also a lot of cost savings over a traditional PBX-based phone system. I know in the past, a lot of people would think that a VoIP telephone system meant that plugging a headset into your desktop computer. That is certainly not the case and has not been for quite some time. Every employee can have a fully functional phone on their desk with full corporate call waiting, three-way calling, conference calling capability, multiple lines available to them, call queues. And what's really great too is the mobility available with a VoIP-based system. You can pick up your phone, unplug it from your desk, and you can bring it home and plug it into your internet at home. And you've taken your fully functional desk phone with you from your office back to your house or to wherever you happen to need to be able to work. There's also some other great features with call forwarding, simultaneous ring, where you can have it ring to your cell phone if you don't pick up your desk phone after so many rings, or have it simultaneously ring to another number if you happen to be somewhere else. Most all the VoIP systems also have apps that integrate with the mobile phones. They also integrate with your email, so you can get your voicemails into your email with some really nice features such as voice to text translations, so you can just really quickly pick up your voicemails and read the text translation of them without having to take the time to call into a system or go ahead and listen to all those messages. There's quite a few different solutions out there, from Ring Central, 8x8, Vonage Business. There's definitely a lot of choice out there for both small businesses and larger enterprises. One thing I had mentioned a couple of minutes ago, I just want to touch on a little bit more, is Microsoft Teams. Most companies are using Office 365 and already have access to Microsoft Teams. So what is Microsoft Teams? Teams is a great platform because it brings together all of the different Microsoft technologies into one place. So where you can chat, meet, call, collaborate all in one place, no matter where you are. Teams, it's a messaging application where you can have all of your conversations, files, and notes can all be accessed by everyone in one place. And then with teams themselves, you can set up teams and you can set those along either different departments or specific projects. It might be a way you would want to organize your teams. So that gives those team members a single place they can go to and see their conversations and share their files and notes, which is really nice because it will work both within your organization and also externally as well. So you can have one place where you can use the instant messaging features to talk about projects or things going on, and also tie those in both with externally as well, where when emails come in, they can come into that same thread as well. And what's nice about that too is it goes beyond email. Myself, countless times I wished I had access to email communication for employees that are long since gone, because you want to know why something was done a certain way or why something happened. With Teams, if all of that conversation is done in Teams, it's preserved, so that as people come and go from a team, they can go back and they can see all of that communication that was in there. And again, most companies already have Office 365, so they already have access to Teams and this platform where you can do all this collaboration all in one place already. One other thing I would like to mention too is with this collaboration, by that I mean the ability to actually work on documents together. So when everyone's in the office, you may walk over to Nancy's desk and say, Nancy, can you take a look at this file with me? And whether it's an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document or whatever it may be, and you can kind of look at it together and solve an issue with that document, or just collaborate together on what's going to go into that document. So here we can do this virtually. So you can have multiple people accessing the same document at the same time, making changes in it all at once. So we've talked about just the general shift from employees working at home and communicating together, but everything that they had on their computer in the office, they're going to need access to once they're working from home. So what tools do we have in order to make that happen? A lot of companies out there have already made a transition to cloud-based applications or services, but a lot of companies still have everything the more traditional setup with a server or servers and all of their programs installed on their computers on their desktops in the office. So how do we get access to those programs and data when everyone's working remotely? So we have two main strategies. We have VPN, which I will go into and explain exactly what that means, and then some type of a remote access solution where you're accessing your computer directly or the programs and the data that's in the office, or you're using maybe a combination of the two. So what is a VPN? VPN stands for Virtual Private Network. What that is, it's a private encrypted connection between you and the office. So here in this picture here, we can see we've got someone, she's sitting at home, she's in her house, and you can see that there's a tunnel made from her laptop back into the office so that she has access to the data that's back in the office. And this is referred to as a remote access VPN. So this is great. There are some pros and there's some cons to a remote access VPN. This can be very useful because whoever is working from home or on the road, they can make a VPN connection and they can get access to the shares and the files that are on the servers in the office, like they're sitting at their desk in the office. There are some cons with this as well. So the first is every employee needs to install some kind of a VPN client to get connected into the office. That client will depend upon what VPN solution that you have. The issue with that is quite commonly VPN clients do run into either connection problems, they won't connect, something's blocking the connection, or sometimes there can be installation problems where the client doesn't want to install properly. And there are definitely security concerns related to this as well, because once you make that VPN connection, it is as if the computer is plugged into the network in the office. And this is where we go back to earlier when I mentioned allowing personally owned devices. If you're going to be doing any kind of a VPN connection into the office, I strongly discourage allowing personally owned devices. It's just, they generally, you don't have corporate policies on them. You don't have unknown antivirus software, don't know if antivirus software is getting updated, et cetera. Another issue you can run into with the VPN connection is latency. And that's just the speed of the connection or the time it takes the data to go back and forth. They can generally be fine if you want to open a file, transfer a file back and forth. But if you've got an application that needs access to a database or a database server in your office, sometimes that connection, you can just have too much latency for that application to work properly. And the other thing is too, is when you do have a VPN connection, you get access to the data, but whatever computer that employee is using, they need to have all of the applications installed on that computer so that they can actually make use of that data. So the other type of VPN connection that we have is what's referred to as a site-to-site VPN. This is a connection that ties two offices together. So you can see in this picture here, we've got Office 1 and Office 2, and those offices have a VPN. So that private connection, an encrypted connection where the two offices are connected together where they would seem like they're actually one office. So when would we want to use a site-to-site VPN? Again, it's connecting two offices, and that could be a home office, although that's something that you'd really want to strongly consider whose home office is being connected this way. Once you have a site-to-site VPN, anybody in that office can access the data across the VPN from the other office. So what's nice about this is you don't need to have any dedicated circuits between the offices. It is a private and secure connection, but you're just making it over the internet. Once you set this up, you generally don't have to think about it again, so that the users in that office don't have to have any knowledge of a VPN client or trying to make a connection. Once it's been set up, it's just there and it works, and they don't even have to know that it exists. So some of the reasons, the cons on a site-to-site VPN VPN is just the main one is just the cost. You have to have hardware and licensing generally in order to make that happen. Typically, that'll happen in a firewall, so you need to have two firewalls that are able to maintain a VPN or make a VPN connection between the two of them. It's generally best when they're the same type of firewall, like a Cisco on each side or a Sonic wall on each side, although that's not required. It's generally just easier to get a connection going when you have the same kind of a device on each side. And again, the same security concerns if you were doing any kind of a VPN between the two offices, anything that happens in one office as far as a virus or anything could potentially go across the VPN to the other office. And the same with the latency that we mentioned with the remote access VPN. You could still run into that as well. And again, too, the same with the applications. You still have to have whatever applications installed on the local computers and so that you can actually make use of that data across that VPN. So that gets us into remote access. We talked about the remote access VPN, but what most people really consider remote access is the ability to control their computer that they have in the office when they're at home or on the road somewhere. There's quite a few different products out there for this. Just mentioned a couple of them here. LogMeIn has been around for a long time, and actually they have bought Citrix GoToMyPC, so those are kind of merging products. One of the best values out there for a smaller office right now is probably ConnectWise Control, which was formerly, they changed the branding on it. It was Screen Connect. Their Access product will allow you to have unlimited user accounts and set it up on up to 25 computers, and it will run about $38 a month if you pay it annually. So that's probably about the most popular one we've been setting up right now. And that does give you just direct one-to-one access. You're working remotely and accessing your single computer that's in the office. What else we have are remote server-based access solutions. So in a larger environment, a remote application server, it would probably be a better solution. That way, all of the remote users can have access to all of the applications that they need without having to worry about whether their computer in the office is actually running. You can make those applications available through a web portal, like in the screenshot here where it says Citrix Receiver. So you log in to the web portal. You see the icons for your applications, click on those, and then the application opens and it looks and feels like it's installed on the computer you're working on, but you're really accessing it remotely. Also, you can grant access to a full desktop as well. So you can log in, have access to a full Windows desktop with all of your programs and all of the normal network drives and everything you're used to when you're working in the office, but you can access that from wherever you happen to be. And again, without having to have your computer in the office turned on because you're doing it through the application server. So the two main offerings are from Citrix, where we have XenApp and XenDesktop, and then Parallel's Remote Application Server. Both very similar products. Parallel's Remote Application Server is more suitable for a smaller office and has a much lower entry cost, where Citrix, XenApp, XenDesktop is going to have a much higher priced entry point. So if we want to look at some of the pros and cons of these two solutions, so for remote access, quick and easy to set up if you've got a small number of users. I would say if you've got 10, 12, maybe 15 people, and you just want to quickly get them remote access, you can get that going. And a lot of people like that because they're actually accessing the computer that they normally use when they're in the office. So there are some disadvantages to that, though. While it is a quick and easy way to keep people in, you do have to keep managing those computers. Every single computer has to be, continue to update it and patch it. Every time there's an update on that person's computer, you've got to update that. And you got to make sure those computers stay turned on all the time and that someone's able to go into the office and turn it back on if it should shut off. And again, you're talking about a one-to-one relationship between your remote workers and the host computers. So that could be great in a situation like we're in now, where everyone already had a desktop and they're being forced to work from home. But you may find yourself in a situation where you've got more remote users than you do remote computers. So in that case, you'd definitely be looking into more of a remote server solution. So with the remote server like Citrix or Parallels, what's great about that is you're only updating and managing, installing patches, installing applications in either a single server or just a group of servers, and not having to do that on every single computer every time there's a change. So disadvantage, there are definitely, hardware and software costs involved with that, as far as whether you're going to need another server or it's going to be virtual or you're going to host that in the cloud, and then the cost of the actual Citrix or Parallels with the licensing to it as well. One question that does come up still from time to time is, why can't I just enable remote desktop or RDP that's built into the computer and make it available for remote access? So the answer to that is, I hope you like viruses. If you take a Windows computer, enable RDP, and open that up to the internet, it's really not a question of if it's going to be hacked and infected. It's only a question of how long it's going to take, whether it's going to be a few minutes or several hours or days, but it will get hacked if you leave a computer open and connected with just the native RDP with nothing else in between. So when looking for any kind of a remote access or VPN solution, you really want to set your expectations and goals before you decide on a solution. So there's a much bigger list than this, but some of the things you would want to consider, when users are connected remotely, are they going to be able to save or export the data outside of the office? Do they just need to be able to access the programs and the applications and save things back to the data center in the office? Or will they be able to save that to the computer they're working on at home or somewhere else? And again, with the VPN personally owned devices, you still have that concern about any kind of viruses or malware on something that's not a company owned device. I mean, you've always got that concern, but with a personally owned device, you really don't know what may be on it for any kind of security solutions. If users are on laptops, are they saving data to the laptop? Are precautions being taken if the laptop is lost or stolen? Same kind of thing even with printing. If you've got confidential information, are they going to be allowed to print that data back to their home offices? So depending upon the answers to these questions, that can also drive what type of solution you should really be looking at. So a question comes up too is, what is the cloud? It's still run into that question from time to time. So quite simply, the cloud just refers to any kind of software storage services made available on the internet. And so underneath those services, you're really just using somebody else's servers and hardware and storage devices other than your own. So if you're on Office 365, you're already using a cloud service. If you're using any kind of an online backup like Cloudberry, which is now called MSP 360 or Carbonite or Acronis or any of those are really cloud services. Even common storage services that most people are using, such as OneDrive or Google Drive or Dropbox, those are all really a cloud storage service. When we're talking about the cloud, you really have three different models, and these terms come up often. So you have SaaS, PaaS, and Infrastructure as a Service, IaaS. So what does SaaS mean? That stands for Software as a Service. So anytime you're accessing, say for example, you used to use QuickBooks and you would install QuickBooks on your desktop, but now you're using QuickBooks online, well, that's a SaaS service. You're accessing it from a browser and logging into it on a browser from a service that you're not hosting yourself. Somebody else is hosting it for you. So that's great because you can, anywhere you've got an internet connection, you can go ahead and you can log into that service and get access to it and use it. PaaS is Platform as a Service. I'm not going to go into that too much. The next slide, we can kind of see a little bit of the difference in that, but it's typically something that's more at the developer level. or IaaS for infrastructure as a service. When clients ask, should I be moving my servers to the cloud? That's really what you're talking about, is infrastructure as a service. And, the answer to that is, well, it depends. You've got Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, Rackspace. There's a variety of different services out there to choose from. And migrating servers out to the cloud, you can get a lot of flexibility and scalability and security benefits doing that. Cost, sometimes there can be some cost savings in migrating your infrastructure, your servers out to the cloud. Sometimes there might not be. Sometimes it could end up costing more, actually. So cost should probably never be the primary consideration when you're talking about migrating your servers or infrastructure as a service. So every environment is out there is different, and everyone's needs are different. So you really just have to kind of evaluate those and take those on a case-by-case basis. So I've got a table here that kind of just shows the differences between the three cloud models and your traditional on-premise. So with on-premise, everything from your applications, whether you've installed Microsoft Office or your accounting application or whatever it may be, a CAD application, you've bought those applications, you've installed them on your computers. You own your data, you own your operating systems, you own the servers, you own the disks, you own everything from top to bottom. So once you're talking about infrastructure as a service, you still have the applications, you still have the data, still have to manage the operating systems, but you've now moved that out to somebody else's hardware and infrastructure, whether that be Amazon or Microsoft Azure, and now you're running your servers on their hardware, basically, is what it comes to. So you've just eliminated the need to have that hardware yourself. And then with the software as a service, it's the complete opposite of on-premises, where that somebody else owns the application, they own your data, and then you're logging in and accessing the data, but the data is on their servers, running on their hardware, it's on their storage. You're just paying to access the application. And then the PaaS, you can really see that's when you have that QuickBooks SaaS service you're subscribing to, they're probably running their service in that PaaS model where the application and the data they're managing, and chances are they're probably running that under somebody else's hardware in the middle. So that's a layer right there that most companies probably aren't going to be dealing with. You've got everything on premises, or you're in the cloud now and probably already using some programs as a software as a service. And you've got a mix of all these things going. So we will be having some more detailed videos coming up on some of the things I've mentioned here, upcoming on Microsoft Teams and Citrix and Parallels and some of these other collaboration tools. I really just wanted to go through at a high level and give all of you some things to think about as far as with people working remotely now, as far as communicating with them and the tools available and the different options available for getting remote access. You can subscribe to our channel. You can look for their information technology group on LinkedIn, and you can also contact us at soundbites@nimsassociates.com if there's any particular topics you'd like to see us cover that were mentioned here. Just let us know.